Hello again. Welcome to another edition of Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait, and
Um, I'm Bob Anthony.
And I'm Raymond Peterson.
And I'm their friend, Alan Singer.
our guest par excellence. This is being brought to you by the good graces of EVT Educational Productions, Zoom, and Manhattan Neighborhood Network. If all goes well, it'll be airing next Monday. We're taping the Wednesday before Monday air, and as I checked my sources, Donald Trump was impeached for the second time about an hour ago. House of Representatives voted something like 221 to 1 whatever. And 10 Republicans actually joined the vote. So the fallout, of course, will occur. And so when next Monday rolls around, I believe 10 Republicans joined because of the infamous, will go down in history, assault on the nation's capital a week ago today. So the reason we wanted Alan here is because people were screaming, "Oh, that's not us, that's not America," et cetera, et cetera. And we needed a historian to help put that in the proper perspective. So Dr. Alan Singer, who actually is a teacher of teachers, an educator, historian, and blogger par excellence again as well, is a historian by trade. And one of the key things about that assault on the Capitol took me right back to the only time those walls were ever breached. And that was when the British invaded in the War of 1812, correct, Alan?
Yes. I think it was 1814. They actually burned the White House.
Yes. And that was the War of 1812, from which came the 1812 overture, I believe.
No, the
No, I
1812.
know. It was
Yes,
in
yes,
commemoration.
yeah.
I was
It was
being
from Russia.
Yes.
but,
It was the same war, but it was a different.
but we're going to get back to the assault on the Capitol. Let's go to the history of why that was, yes, that is America, and that is and the reason why I say 1812 and the Brits is because the only other time we came close to getting that Capitol invaded and the White House burnt down was during the Civil War, when the Confederates were just across the Potomac, if memory serves me correctly, and they had to put up whatever last ditch defenses were to keep them from crossing the river. So the fact that a Confederate flag was desecrating the Capitol is why I needed to go back to the Civil War. But of course, Alan, we were talking about this being the ultimate in Donald Trump's white supremacist megalomania, egging on his like-minded Proud Boys, KKK, whoever other right-wing extremists who are worried about being replaced and displaced in this republic. So he asked them to come and do their worst, and they came and did their worst. So historically, give us a little overview on some of the things that have happened in the past. Wilmington, North Carolina comes to mind immediately.
Well, actually, I was thinking of H. Rap Brown. I think it was H. Rap Brown who said, "Violence is American as apple pie." And of course, everybody was outraged, but of course, he was correct. You know, there's been a big assault on the 1619 project for portraying America in dark ways. But the reality is, while America has important promise, but it has also not lived up to that promise. And one of the reasons has been terrorist violence. I mean, slavery, enslaved Africans were kept enslaved through terrorist violence. Native Americans were subject to genocide. And now, I mean, we're even looking at someone like Andrew Jackson, who becomes president of the United States, who was engaged in the extermination of Native Americans. In fact, Native Americans were driven out of the American Southeast to make space to grow cotton and expand slavery. So, I mean, this is a very long tradition. And New York City has not been exempt. In 1741, the whites in New York City were afraid that blacks were plotting against them. they actually put 180 enslaved Africans and a couple of whites were accused of working with them on trial. And they executed 35 people with no evidence. In 1863, there were draft riots in New York City and over 100 people were killed, including people lynched, and African Americans who were lynched in the street. After the Civil War, the KKK was a terrorist organization and they stole freedom back, instituting segregation through terror.
Specifically, there are a couple of instances about that, because right after the Civil War, I think it was 1866 in Memphis, Tennessee, correct? When those Black veterans who had served the Union were going back to rebuild their lives after the Civil War, the presagers of the KKK, if it wasn't the already founded KKK, set upon them and murdered about 35 Black former federal troops. In that same year in New Orleans, Louisiana.
1874 was New Orleans.
No, 1866.
Also, then again in 1874.
Well, the convention that was supposed to go ahead and ratify the 13th Amendment, 14th Amendment. Louisiana had already ratified the 13th and 14th Amendment, and they were having a convention. And the federal troops were in New Orleans and they didn't act. And the people who convened to deal with passing the new laws and whatever were set upon and basically massacred. Phil Sheridan wrote a report to the War Department saying this was a massacre. This was not rioters. This was an out and out massacre. And yeah, that was like, 1866. And then 1876, you had the Rutherford B. Hayes. Tell us about the compromise election of 1876.
Well, what happens in 1876 is, one, the North is tiring of the war, and people, Northern government, Northern industry, Northern business, they want to concentrate on industrial revolution, investment, and making money. And basically what happens is they don't want to pay to keep the troops in the South to protect freedom. So what happens in the election, Tilden, who's a Democratic candidate, is leading by has 183 electoral votes. There are two Southern states where the white, what they called the Redeemers, but really the white segregationists in the Klan, submitted electoral votes claiming that they won.
Mm-hmm.
The Republicans said, no, those were faulty votes. The Republican candidate really won. And we don't know who won, because Africans who tried to vote were terrorized to prevent them from voting. So it was not
They actually had the right to vote, but they were terrorized and couldn't vote.
Yes.
And they had the right to vote because they had gotten franchise.
African-American men.
Yes.
Well, what happens is they meet in the House and the Senate, and it's divided, and they ultimately decide to have a special commission. But the basic result is the Democrats agree that the Republicans can control the national government, and the Republicans agree that the Democrats can do whatever they want to the Blacks in the South. And that creates the conditions for Jim Crow, segregation, and just the worst terrorism in the history of the United States.
That was the end of Reconstruction.
That was the end. That was the end of civil rights.
So 22 years later, you have Wilmington,
North Carolina.
And Bob, we talked about this on Media Watch before. Basically, somebody was saying this attempt at a coup was the first attempt at a coup in the United States of America. No, there have been a few previous attempts. The only successful coup was when a biracial government was elected in Wilmington, North Carolina in 1898. And the white supremacists and the KKK and whomever, White Citizens Council, whatever they were calling themselves back then, they just took up arms, rioted, ran the people out of town, killed the Blacks that didn't escape, and successfully overthrew that government by force. And so when you see last Wednesday, these people actually planning at the behest of one Donald Trump and whatever the guy from Alabama, Mo, whatever his last name, which I don't even want to
Oh,
call
Brooks.
Mo Brooks, when they stand up there and egg these people on, I am not really, really happy about that. But that historical backdrop brings us to what transpired. And so here Donald Trump gets impeached for fomenting this insurrection. Nobody yet is talking about those other congresspersons who were complicit in this, but to get to the actual riots themselves, I mean, if we were in a better situation, I'd try to play some of that footage, but we're not in the typical mode in our Zoom parameters, so I'm not going to play any of the footage. But Raymond, there was an investigation going on about how many law enforcement people may have been involved in that. Just to start with that coterie of how bad this riot was, not just about what they tried to do, but who was involved. What did you dig up on some of that, if anything?
Well, I wasn't reading a lot about that, but there are several jurisdictions that are looking into the involvement of their police force members. I don't know that New York is one of them. I haven't
New
heard
York
that.
is indeed one of them. Yes.
It is? Okay, I did not see them in what I was reading. But I haven't read a lot about that. I've been looking at this guy that you mentioned the other day, Abdul.
Ali Akbar Alexander, the guy, the stop the steal guy. Okay, we're talking about accountability and who was involved. What did you dig up on Ali Akbar and his stop the steal? Because he claimed recently that he was in contact with Mo Brooks and a couple of Arizona delegations.
So he says. I don't know. I mean, I can't verify that one way or the other. One of the local Arizona newspapers printed that as well. What I found out about, let me just read something. You were asking me, who is this guy? I'll tell you who this guy is. This guy is the guy that said in the video that I saw yesterday, dated, stamped as of the 10th, the day before. And he is saying, I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but he said, and I'm quoting here, "The Lord says, vengeance is mine, and I pray that I am the tool to stab these mother effers." Another quote from the same video, "The nation is imperiled. They are trying to rape your children." This guy's been on the fringes of politics since 2008.
Well, the stuff you sent me, he joined the Republican campaign, John McCain's campaign.
He apparently worked for the campaign, and
he's never been a Trump supporter for quite some time.
He's been a Trump supporter. I saw a statement by him that although he was against Hillary Brooks winning the election, and he doesn't like Biden at all, but he'd rather see Biden in as opposed to Hillary. He's been hanging around. He's been organizing things. He's belonged to a couple of web groups, of which he has eventually been the head of, right-wing web sites. But it seems like it all seems like a scam. Yeah, I believe that he's a Trumper, but I also think that he's a scammer. He's been allegedly taking money out of these campaigns that he's been raising them for, and he's been collecting money that is not always going to Donald Trump, although I'm sure some has because he has an association with Trump. I saw a picture, as a matter of fact, I sent it to you, with him and Trump.
Bob just put him up there. There he is.
See, that's the guy.
Yes.
That's the guy.
Yeah. Now, he has been convicted
of
felonies.
He's a convicted
petty
felon.
thief, petty robbery. For some reason, he keeps just getting probation. Anybody else get convicted of stuff like that, they find themselves behind bars in jail.
Apparently, he's got a
Who does he
couple of
know?
friends in high places. I don't know. I don't know how he beat those convictions. I saw nothing on how he got out of them. What his plea
Yeah,
was.
I saw some back and forth stuff where somebody said, well, this is a black guy who does somebody went back with, no, he's not black, he Arab, and he's trying to pretend he's black. Nobody wants to claim him. No, none of the
Well,
people
yeah, no,
want to claim him. That's why I said, well, who is this guy? Where's he come from? Where was he actually born and raised? That's my
That's a
question.
question. Now, they say that he was, the Southwest, Virginia, Texas, and one
He's
other.
moved
that I
around
can't
the
remember
country.
right now. He's
Can
moved
anybody
around.
pin down where he was born and raised? I've not been able to find it anywhere.
Well, yeah, and what's his real name? That's what I want to know.
Actually, they seem to think the Ali Akbar Raquam Alexander whatever is his real name. But he's taken to going by Alexander these days.
It just shows you the power of social media. You have somebody with basically no qualifications for nothing, but he gets a hashtag that goes viral, stop the steal, and all of a sudden everybody's jumping on the bandwagon. But this guy has no props.
But you see, with a lot of
he's
Trump
organizing
supporters-
demonstrations. He claims to be the man behind the quote "Stop the Steal,"
Right.
and he's getting credit in the media for being the man behind "Stop the Steal." So maybe he did found "Stop the Steal."
And people are contributing to the he's one of his websites is just a website with a logo.
Yeah, but I heard they just knocked him off of Parler. And
He's off of everything. I couldn't find his presence at all on the web today.
But that's the new thing, Bob. All of a sudden, the website people, the media platforms have all gotten religion all of a sudden. Talk to us about Trump getting banned. Talk to us about Amazon knocking all these people off their platforms and stuff.
I mean, I was stunned because they waited this long. It's 3 years and 11 months, too damn long.
Look at all of the Congress people that are jumping off the ship.
We're gonna get to them.
Yes.
Talk to us about these platform people.
Well, I mean, when they knocked Trump off of Twitter, of course, I did a celebration in my house because that was a long time coming. He had violated every rule they ever placed against incendiary speech and things like that. So when that happened, I was stunned and quite happy, and I assumed that he and his friends would jump to Parler, PAL. The
RLER, yeah,
and it's a social media site that caters to the extreme right, and they say so in their press releases, which I get for some reason.
But I think they're being dropped by Google.
Well, what happened was that Google dropped Parler from their app store, then followed by Apple dropped them from the app store. And then Parler decided to make it possible to download the Android app direct from their site. I think you can still do that. But then Amazon Web Services pulled the plug on their servers. And that's what really took them down. When I heard that, I was like,
finally, they're understanding what they need to do.
Yeah.
Don't have a server, you can't do crap.
They had that coming. If you had read what the founder Matsky had said in the press releases and whatnot, I was wondering when something would happen, and now it has.
Yeah. See, my point about these accountability and stuff, to get to Ray's point about these Congress people now having their come to Jesus moment. I want to know, and Alan, you can school us on this. All these congressional people who were inciting this and pushing it and telling these lies that they knew were lies. Basically, when you incite insurrection, you're basically in violation of at least the 14th Amendment, if not the 14th and the 15th. And I know the 14th Amendment was crafted to deal with those Southern senators after the Civil War. So Alan, a little bit about what would be the possibility of not just censuring these Congress people, but kicking them out of office based on the 14th Amendment?
Well, technically, in the original Constitution, there is provision for removing representatives. They have used it against judges. So technically it can be done. I don't believe it has ever been done. But one of the things that came up it was in the New York Times in their most recent update, is that apparently on Tuesday, some of the congressional representatives, I suspect Brooks is one, actually gave guided tours of the House, arranged guided tours of the House for some of the insurrectionists.
Mikey Sherrill, the rep from New Jersey, I believe she's from Jersey.
Yes.
She blew the whistle on them. Go ahead, Alan.
No, it's, and they said people saw them. They were suspicious because under COVID, there weren't supposed to be these tours. So what you have were people who then become involved in tours in the insurrection, got tours. That's how they knew where Pelosi's office was, because they were given a tour.
No, no, for real.
That's crap that's going to hit the fan.
But the investigation, yeah, go ahead, finish.
They've also suspended 3 of the officers, and 17 are under investigation for they may have been involved. So it goes very, very deep.
It's even deeper than that.
It's going to keep. Look, one of the questions: who paid for these people to come?
Yeah,
These are not people with a lot of money.
That's the whole conspiracy investigations going on. But I read a report just a little while ago. Ayanna Pressley's office, when they hit the lockdown mode and they went to shelter in their office, her aide went to press the panic button to let folks know that they were in distress and where they were, and the entire system had been ripped from the walls.
People knew.
Panic button system was ripped from the wall, which meant somebody prejudged it. I didn't read the story about AOC, but she said she came real close to having folks get to her. And so the reports are now coming out that the squad, the so-called squad, those progressive females in the House, were evidently deliberately targeted by this group. And so they were in even more danger because they were select targets, just like Nancy Pelosi was a target. And Pence, hang Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence. Pence became a target. Well, the squad was also turning out to be a target.
Two things, Eric. You said the panic button system was not disabled but ripped out. So that's one. Okay, that's one.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody who's ever been in the Capitol building knows that it's a maze. It's a warren. You can't just walk in there and look at a building directory and know where the hell to go. A tour would be necessary to find some of these offices, especially those that aren't even marked.
They don't have the names on the offices for good reasons. Pelosi's office doesn't have her name. Jim Clyburn's office doesn't have
No, Pelosi has a name.
Clyburn's office didn't have a name, but they
he did not.
Targeted his. And so the interesting thing is, who's giving the guided tours? Who's giving the intelligence on where to go? And if we don't get a serious investigation about all that, with all this evidence that's rapidly coming out, then these Democrats that are now in power will be asleep at the wheel if we don't get a deep dive into this and start getting some reckoning. So,
yeah, and it's documented. The Boston radio and TV documented that Presley's system had been ripped out before the attack, and they hadn't been informed. They were never explained why.
Yep. There's a lot of deep stuff going on. The whole bit about the military. Did you see the story about the entire military? You remember that discussion we've had about how many right-wing people were infiltrating the military? We've done this over the years, so they can get trained and all that stuff. And the fact that it never ceased, they'd do a token investigation and then it'd disappear. It boils down to the fact that they have known for years that they've had this problem, but they don't want to dig into it because they just don't want to know how deep it is. And so with all this hitting the fan now, if we can't light a fire under all these congressional delegations to put a fire under the Defense Department to root this stuff out, then we're going to be asleep at the wheel ourselves. Because it's incumbent on us, the general public, to make these people dig into this kind of insidious, what do we call it, infiltration of the forces that are supposed to be protecting democracy, and they're worming their way in there to destroy it. This is not acceptable, as or what's that phrase? This will not fly as far as I'm concerned. We need to put a stop to this immediately.
Germany has been exposing the right-wing infiltration of its police and its military, because these are neo-Nazis in a place where Nazism destroyed the country. But if they have it there, it's good. Look, I can't believe that Klan-like people have not gotten into major police forces all across the country.
Oh yeah, we talked about that too. After Kenosha, we we're talking about, you know, that pipeline, that bit about, oh, these little police academies, these little mini police. That's where the 17-year-old who crossed the line and shot those 3 people, he was in one of those little organizations, okay? And so all these right-leaning, gun-toting, wannabe white supremacists, the fact that a lot of these cops kill Black people, you think that's accidental? I don't think so.
Okay, Eric, we have about 2 minutes.
Oh, well, okay, we're still in the accountability phase.
Okay.
So what's your take on where the investigation is going to go? Will the Senate actually vote to convict Donald Trump? Where's Mitch McConnell now that he's no longer the leader? Alan, what's your take on what the Senate trial may or may not be? And then we can go round robin and wrap it up.
Well, first, nothing is going to happen in the Senate until after Biden is inaugurated. The Senate is on recess. It's not coming back until the 19th. The real question will be whether the Biden administration wants to pursue it. Because, look, Biden keeps saying he's about healing, he's about bringing people together. I don't know who he plans to bring together because these Republicans are outrageous. I was listening to the testimony they were giving, and they were saying, well, you guys hated him from the beginning. That's why you're doing this.
Right.
Completely ignoring what happened. They said, you didn't censor Black Lives Matter when they were like, well,
They're not in the White House.
they're not the president, and they didn't attack the Congress. And it was just, the statements were ludicrous. These are not people you can work with.
What do you think?
I don't know what's going to happen.
I agree with Alan. Same thing. The statements were ludicrous. They didn't address the charges. They just said the Democrat was trying to beat them down. What do you think, Ray? We have about 30 seconds left.
I agree. No, I absolutely do agree with you, Bob. What more can I say? If I start, I'll start ranting, and Eric doesn't like that, so I'm not going to.
Sometimes it pays to rant. Anyway, look, folks, be good, stay safe. COVID's still out there. Try to get vaccinated. I'm trying to get on 2 lists at once, but that's another story. So all I can say is this has been Media Watch, folks. I'm Eric Tait.
I'm Bob Anthony. Catch up to us on Twitter and YouTube at Media Watch EVT.
I'm Raymond Peterson.
And I'm Alan Singer.
And thank you again for joining us, Alan. And everybody stay safe. We'll catch you the next time.